Hi everyone, my name's Michelle. I'm one of the dietitians here with Nutrition Innovated in Durban, and today I want to talk to you about the topic of emotional eating. It's something that we often get asked about in our practice, and considering everything that's going on at the moment, I thought it was quite a relevant topic to discuss today. So what I want to do is just explain to you a bit about what emotional eating is, help you to understand it a little bit, and look at ways of managing it. So emotional eating is eating in response to a particular emotion. Generally, we do it when we're not necessarily always feeling physically hungry, and it's often associated with feelings of guilt as well as a fear of gaining weight. Because of these reasons, emotional eating is obviously or generally seen in quite a negative light and very much villainized. So we often think that it's this bad thing that we do that we can't control. And that might not always be the case. One thing we don't always understand is that food isn't just a source of nutrients and calories. Food is also a very important source of emotional nourishment as well. Food gives us feelings of relief, happiness, pleasure, and sometimes there might be situations in life where we might not be getting those feelings anywhere else but the food. So it can be a very, very important part of helping us manage our emotions as well. What often happens is, people tend to want to restrict the food. So they think that the food is the problem, and they try and, avoid the foods, which doesn't end up actually solving the problem. So when it comes to managing emotional eating, what we actually need to do is look at the cause of emotional eating, which is the emotion, and find ways to manage it. So the first step is recognizing the emotion that elicits the problem. Common emotions, that generally result in emotional eating is stress, anxiety, loneliness, depression, boredom, all of those sorts of things. Once we've identified the particular emotion that we're feeling that's causing the emotional eating, we then put things in place to help you manage those emotions. So if we look at the current situation that we're in, stress could be an emotion that you're currently feeling. So putting things in place to help you manage stress. So we know that exercise helps with managing stress. Reading, cooking, yoga, meditating, all of those sorts of things can help with stress management. And sometimes also looking at putting things in place to actually help with the actual cause of the stress, whether it be financial stress, or whether it be stress over COVID-19, trying to find ways to actually manage those particular stresses as well. Other things or emotions you might be feeling too is maybe boredom, which I think a lot of us are feeling right now. So once you can identify that boredom is your problem, try and put things in place to help you manage the boredom. So, finding things to help reduce the amount of time in the day that you have to feel bored. I normally suggest, giving yourself a bit of a structure for a day so you know what you're going to do and not leave massive gaps where you can actually feel bored. There's a lot of things available online at the moment that might help to fill that time. So for instance, there's a lot of online courses that are free. So for instance, UCT, WITS, Oxford are offering online free courses. There's audiobooks that you can listen to. Yappy Chef is doing a cooking course, all of those sorts of things. But just find something that you enjoy that can help to fill your time during the day. Maybe even if it's housework, finding, hobbies, that kind of thing. Another thing that we also need to realize with emotional eating is that sometimes the emotional eating is not necessarily the reason for eating. Sometimes there's another reason behind it, and we kind of confuse it with always being emotional eating. I mentioned in the beginning that emotional eating is often associated with the feeling of guilt and a fear of gaining weight. So what often happens is people feel the need to restrict food. So, if you, for instance, emotionally eat on something, you might think, oh dear, that I was bad, I ate too much of something, and your response would be to then restrict that behavior, or restrict your food intake thereafter. The problem with that is that by restricting the food, what you're actually doing is you're causing havoc with your emotions, and you can actually amplify feelings of anxiety and depression. And with that obviously means that you're going to end up emotionally eating more. So to solve that, we need to actually just make sure that we are eating normally throughout the day and not eliminating or restricting. So the important thing to consider from a nutritional point is making sure that you're eating foods to nourish your body and not always just going for foods that are low in energy or calories or that sort of thing. Making sure that you're not, over restricting your calorie intake to compensate for, extra eating, as well as not completely eliminating particular foods, because that's just going to aggravate the emotional eating as well. Make sure that you're also eating good quality foods and that the meals that you're eating are satisfying. If you find that you're eating a meal and an hour later you're hungry again, you know that your meal wasn't big enough. So try and make sure that you're eating decent portions and that you are feeling satisfied after the meal. Then most importantly, try and make sure that you're not feeling guilty about emotional eating. Emotional eating, remember, is something that is actually quite normal. So if you do emotionally eat and you do find yourself eating that chocolate and it gives you those feelings of pleasure and happiness, then that's a good thing. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Don't respond and restrict food, rather just move on from that eating episode and carry on with your next meal. So make sure you're nourishing your body properly. Make sure that you are managing the emotions, okay, by identifying it and then putting things in place, and that should help with managing emotional eating. I really hope that you found this helpful. I will be putting an article online that will have all the information and a bit more. And if there's any extra support that anyone needs, us at Nutrition Innovated are here to help. Otherwise, have a lovely day. Goodbye.